it, I guess it started raining that day. Luckily, we were there and we
Mhm.
noticed it. I think this was probably about a year ago or so.
Okay, so we
And
just let it leak for a year.
kind of, I
Okay.
mean,
Go
there
ahead.
wasn't really.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to an LP Alliance live stream. We are LP Alliance, an intercaucus coalition dedicated to unifying and rebuilding the Libertarian Party. My name is Amanda Griffiths. I'm here with Phil Ryan, Kyle Davis. The LP HQ roof would be with us this evening, but it had to take a leak. We are going to be discussing the LP. I know, it's great, guys. We are going to be discussing the LNC drama, the last night's meeting, and discussions of how building maintenance is woke, what is going on here. But of course, we also had two conventions this past weekend, LPTN and LPPA. Phil, you are a Pennsylvanian, so what can you tell us from the front in LPPA?
Yeah, I mean, Pennsylvania was interesting. I'll say that. Yeah, two things that I heard that I was kind of shocked about, and I think really affects our ability to like broadcast libertarian ideas in the public, is members that say, "I don't care if the Libertarian Party dies," and also that we're really arguing over language of self-ownership because organ markets should be legal. If you want an answer of why, like general public, like looks at this and goes, no, thank you, even though a lot of our ideas would be popular among, the broader public, that would be one of them. And so it was definitely interesting. Some crazy things happened with some language changes that they wanted to do. Some positive things happened as well, I think, in the stance of somebody that wants like a neutral party, where we can have kind of coalitions of people that have like different worldviews. And so maybe I should get into it. There was the first real thing that was a shock was they wanted to remove the word equal before rights. And then they wanted to change it. So, basically remove equal from before the word rights. And then after it says to do the same. So basically rights to do the same. And so you have to think, what was the purpose of that language change to understand why would you want to remove a word that has been longstanding in, libertarian philosophy, even just in American culture, right, of equality under the law. And I think it really comes from the idea that if you can do the same thing, then you don't have the same equal rights to something. And I really think this draws along the rights of, gay marriage. I think the point would be that, we can't call it marriage, but if you have a civil union, then you're technically doing the same thing, and it counts that way. And I have a hard time with this, in general, because many states won't follow exactly the same laws. We knew that when civil unions were a thing. And so, this has externalities that if you don't have that equal right to the access of a federally legal, while the federal government's in the business of licensing marriage, then externalities of other government services that you're kind of forced into, like taxes, become not equal, right? And so I think that's something that libertarians, regardless of where you are, should be saying, like, we have to maintain this equality there. And luckily it was resoundingly rejected, which is a really good sign that kind of this ideology that people shouldn't be equal in all things before the law and within government currently is not a popular one, even among people that, may have been in that group of people in the past. So I think that was a big sign for me. I was like, okay, things are interesting here. They want to throw some crazy stuff, but that didn't stick. And let's see where it goes from there. I mean, I guess, what is your guys' opinion? What would you do if you were in my shoes while you were there? Like, what do I was just, I was almost dumbfounded,
With the removal of, you mean what, with respect to proposing the removal of the word equal, or respect to it being struck down?
I mean, both, really.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'd throw a chair, but my approach is somewhat controversial. So I don't, Kyle, what would you have done?
My general way of thinking about things is that if someone is doing something that is fucked up, you yell about it, and you do whatever you have to make sure it stops. And so my understanding is that Phil did that. And thereby, I'm pretty happy with how Phil responded.
Yeah, there was a couple moments where people stood up, in a couple opponents where they were trying to change the wording or the meaning behind what's been longstanding libertarian principle. A lot of old guard within the party was like, no, like this is not okay. And that was one of them. The idea of equal rights. People spoke up regardless of where you might have aligned factionally, of saying, what does this add by switching it? It's almost like people knew there was an ulterior motive and said, no, we are not doing that. And so it was actually nice to see that had such strong push against. And I would say the second time there was a lot of strong pushback and especially was where I spoke up, was the idea of self-ownership, and where the discussions happened of like, we got to focus on organs, and it got even crazier because, people pushed back against the person that did it, and said like, I stood up and said like, look, I've never been in inter-party politics, but self-ownership is something that has defined my vision of the world or my worldview. And I've been calling myself a libertarian for as long as I can remember. And striking that down will shift the meaning of the word, shift the meaning of the party. And we can't really let that happen. And it seemed like that was the majority of the sentiment on the floor to this person's bringing it up. Some debate and discussion happened around it. And I think the guy at the end of it, kind of just had to grandstand, kind of like, almost like a theater kid being like, well, God is what owns you don't own yourself. God owns it. And it was like, I understand it from like the religious perspective, but like we were talking about a political philosophy, God, if you believe in God, God owns your soul. You don't have to call it yourself as well, right? You can keep this distinct when we're talking about, our physical bodies in this world as being a self. Leave it at that. Don't project your worldview onto other people. And that was rejected. So it was nice to see that libertarians, regardless of where they lie, still believe in self-ownership for the most part.
It's so crazy. Self-ownership, that is honestly the one thing, if I have to describe libertarianism in one word to somebody, a hyphenated word, it's self-ownership. Yeah. And it says so much about what that philosophy is. You got the "you own yourself" T-shirt. I mean, it's just part of libertarianism. It's odd. I was thinking as you were talking, Phil, because I think a lot of the impetus to remove some of this language, especially things like the word equal, comes from the notion of, well, these words symbolize some kind of virtue signaling. Ergo, I am going to remove this word to signal that I am against all of this woke, crazy virtue signaling. And it's completely backwards, because the real virtue signaling comes from that overzealous effort to redact something that was always essential to the platform. That's what draws the attention to it, and that's the actual virtue signaling. It's minutia, but it's important in terms of what we stand for.
No, I absolutely agree, and I would argue that there was multiple times during the convention where it very much seemed like this whole idea of cultural Marxism, right, is the idea that you're going, there's an accepted worldview, and if you're outside of it, you're automatically kind of on the outs. And it seemed like it's just the other way around. It's either you're a religious far, right libertarian, or you're on the outs. And I think a big majority of even people that would call themselves right libertarians are tired of that being the narrative, because it just causes divides that really don't need to be there. I think we were respectful in our disagreements on these things. But from somebody on the side, like the performative thing that these people were doing was like interesting to watch from somebody who's like never been there. It's like a grandstanding moment for just saying it. And it wasn't the only time. And I get it. Like, people want to stand up there and say whatever they want. But like, it was definitely funny to watch, for sure. Okay. What else would I say is like kind of a big moment, in general? They did, I will say, I came into this convention in somewhat thinking that PA had gone somewhat good faith, because the board has been somewhat of a 50-50, and the people on the board that might be leaning more one way than the other have been trying to at least make things more neutral, which obviously aligns with our goals, because as a coalition, we want things to allow for ideological differences and just say we respectfully disagree. We will each do our own thing, but we still want the better for the party. And it seemed like that was what was done in the initial rewrite from the majority of the rewrite of some of the principles. But then eventually, it seemed like they were getting put back in from the floor. And this was not something I had expected. And we probably should have. I was just thinking, man, LPPA has really gone good faith. The stuff that happened at National have people like recognizing that like this is not the way forward of trying to like own the narrative within the party for one group. And I guess that was a, naive view for mine. And we didn't do any outreach in PA to bring people there, right? We didn't make phone banking. We didn't do any of that sort of thing. And I think if we would have, like, we could have made sure that it was a truly neutral platform and that people's special interests kind of didn't get put back into it. Because I think that's where the division really happens, is that you can look at the principle and you might apply it to something radically different depending on who you are. And the minute one special interest gets put in, then everybody wants theirs in there. And then it's whoever has the dominant, crowd on that one opinion is what gets it in there. And then people get flustered and now it's tribal. Right. Whereas if it really was just truly neutral, we would be able to grow kind of separately. And I might disagree with everything you believe in because you have a different interpretation. But as long as the official party is not counter representing me in its words, then like I think that would be a big way forward. And right now it currently isn't, but it still felt like there was some special interest. Like, I'll give you an example. They wanted to remove the sex plank, and I think the sex work plank is fine. I think it could be in there. And I specifically think of it because it's a commerce, and as libertarians, we like the ability to do free commerce.
I liked frilly commerce better there.
I'm sorry.
Frilly commerce is great. Lace and leather. It's wonderful. It goes with sex workers, so it's fine.
Exactly. I'm sorry. Yeah. But like, that wanted to be removed. It's been wanted to be removed by people for a while. And I think the only reason why people would really get angry about its removal is if it wasn't represented in another principle, like kind of implicitly. And even if it's not explicit. And so it's like, okay, that as long as this is somewhere else, you can at least justify it, that it can be this neutral position. But they then wanted to put in, like, we have to say that religion is under attack by the government. And so we must put in a statement explicitly about that. And the original version of it just said free expression, basically something along the lines of free expression. And instead it was like, no, we need to say the word religion. And it's like, well, free expression covers religion, right? And free association covers it. And so it's kind of like, it's unnecessary wording when it's something they don't like. And it's very necessary wording when it's something they do like. And it was sad to see like that being pushed forward. And I tried to remind people, like, look, you spent all this time saying you want to remove every identity trait because you don't want to actually exclude anybody or exclude anybody's one key trait. But now you're putting some back in for something you're interested in. And I had people that were like, yeah, I agree with you afterwards. Even ones that were like voting for the religion. I was like, do you see what you just did? And they said, yes, I do agree. But at least it's getting better. And hopefully this is a continued process. The next time bylaws come around again, we will definitely be focusing on phone banking to guarantee that we really can neutralize this. And that way, I think we'll be able to really do better for the party in total without fighting. And then there's the one win, which I don't know. I get worried about calling it a win, but I will call it a win. In general, I had some reflection about it afterwards. The people on the right libertarian side have this worldview that like it must be only two genders, right? And they really want to project that. They really want to be anti something else they want to project their worldview through the party. And I think this again would counter represent somebody else who might be a liberty ally, right? If you project that way, you might be counter representing somebody who might not believe that there's two genders there and, that there's more or whatever. And so the language initially was very broad and could be viewed any which way. And this is why I say, the rewrite of the planks seemed like they were neutral. And then somebody wanted to insert the words his or her as like they're defining that there are only two genders. And I said, like, look, what would be the point of adding that when there's already a neutral word there? It's not like it says his, her, they, them. So it's not counter representing your worldview. And it's somebody else from the crowd had reworded it such that it could remain in a neutral format and it was accepted. And it was nice to see that. It was like, oh man, this is like people are willing to be neutral. Like they don't need their worldview projected through the party anymore. They can go project it elsewhere. I will disagree with you. I will probably argue with you. I won't get, vitriolic and angry with you, but I will try to convince you of why, you might be misguided, respectfully, and, stand up for the people that would be on that other side of the worldview. But, I think that at least there's a hunger for this idea of being more neutral for it. And so one of the other people later on wanted to insert those words again into a different plank or principle. And it was like he came up there and like was very, very much clutching his pearls in this performative, way.
His or her pearls.
Yeah, his or her. Yeah, his, her, they, or them's pearls. I don't know which one the person. Yeah, I can't really assume with that guy. I'm sorry. But yeah, I don't. For that person, it very much seemed like they needed to perform that this is their worldview, right? That it's like legitimately like there's only two and we must present it again. And, it was very sad to see like his small little social club clapping for him and then it gets shot down. Like it's very clear now, like, no, this is not an ideology that people are hungry to present and push forward. Even if they might personally believe it, they're like, look, we're fine with existing in our own world. And with the way we believe, let them exist the way they believe, and be over there. And so I really do look at that as like a win towards neutrality and pushing to the idea that like, even if you have these vastly different ideas, we can at least not be thinking each other as tribal enemies, because that's when discussions end. That's when conversations end. And that's when like the appeal to like changing worldviews goes away. Right. And at least you're not, at least it opens up the place for people to understand different perspectives. And so that was I think a real positive result there. And it took me some time to like, I was very pessimistic in the moment while I was there from it. But then I had to sit back and realize like, actually, this was a kind of a change in the way I'm viewing the landscape in LPPA. And there was one last other win, was a write-up, I think, by TJ and Brittany Kozin using with the Medical Freedom Caucus with a medical freedom plank that is very broad. And so it would allow for, if you have a left libertarian that wants to promote, trans rights to medical care, they could utilize that language and then make it issue specific and put out, pamphlets or whatever, and be okay with it. And you could have somebody on the right side being like anti-vax, right? Like that, this is the anti-vax plank. And it felt like it was extremely well written in my opinion. Now, when I was looking back at it, that it really does cover everybody's right to these various medical treatments with no intrusion of government, which is much, much better than the people that before wanted to basically say like, especially the pro-life libertarians, like abortion must be said that it's not in this. And instead it's now very broad, and somebody could say abortion is in this depending on their value system.
So our resident libertarian parliamentarian, the epitome of libertarian parliamentarians, has given a good take on how we should fix bylaws in every affiliate and national. And I mean, I don't think that anyone who's a libertarian can argue with this.
If they said that, call the question. I will say this is my first convention where like I was actually involved in it. The last one I kind of sat there and watched as LPPA fell, and kind of left after I realized like there was the numbers were just so far off. People had gotten bussed in from out of state, and Republicans were registered very shortly before. And so I watched that happen, and it was like a different experience. This time I got to experience the parliamentary process, and I fully understand now why anarchists are like, this is a waste of fucking man hours, And I'm like, yeah, I get it, dude. I get it. But like, if nobody goes there and sits in those seats, then like, it just is so far from what actually needs to be represented. But yeah, it was it's an experience. I probably look like a noob to all the actual parliamentarians out there. And I am like, I could give two shits about parliamentary procedure. And the reason why I think is our group, especially, we have pretty wide ranging beliefs at all levels within our organization. And we kind of just expect everybody that's there to be in good faith. And so then if somebody suggests something, we don't have to go through like, actually, that's not the right motion. It's just like, oh, what was the intent? And you go, what was the intent of that? And is there confusion? Let's get some clarifying, and then just go with what it was, as long as nobody makes a fuss. And so it was definitely interesting to see it so rigidly applied. But hey, I guess we need some sort of thing because you got to guard from people that are bad faith. Luckily, we haven't had that problem really internally inside of LP Alliance.
It's a good friend was talking to me about Roner and about the folks that don't like Roner and would prefer to have a different setup and everything else. And effectively, what Roner is 200 years of learning that if you don't have those rules there of how to do things, we don't actually all speak the same language at all. Humans are horrible at see, I can't even do it now. Getting our idea across to people, and with details that I could say in general, I like hamburgers, and then someone's going to take that as a very specific thing.
You hate hot dogs, you son of a bitch.
Cheeseburgers, exactly.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, a ball of meat and fat is attempting to understand.
What are you calling me, man? I'm right
calling
here.
Your brain, meat, and fat. A ball of meat and fat that's electrified is attempting to understand other meat flapping at it, right? Like, Amanda is muted, and I think I'm probably happy about it. Like literally, we flap meat at each other, and then our meat understands meat.
This has gone too far. It's too meta now, man. It's too.
No, I'm about to. I'm waiting for you to start talking about tacos now. Honestly, that's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the question that's always important here is: are hot dogs tacos?
No, I thought it was are hot dogs a sandwich?
That's a different question.
Yeah.
You just did the thing we were talking about.
Did the thing we're talking about. Okay.
I was doing an example for you. You're welcome.
All right, point of information, and I must know. But do you see how we can the clarification process? So I guess I have a hard time from this because I collaborate in research, and so sometimes they're extremely difficult topics, and sometimes it's something that I'm not an expert in, but I'm at a conference or whatever, and you ask a lot of clarifying questions, and it's always done in good faith, and you'll know a difference between somebody who's asking a question in bad faith versus somebody that's asking a question in good faith. And I feel like that's the biggest separation between kind of cohesion with any sort of interaction. And I got to believe that that's possible for libertarians. I see it inside of our group. So it is, hopefully it just continues that way in our group, and it can propagate out and people really can expand upon it further and just expect the good faith behavior.
You also said that, so Avin's had a presentation there, right? Or was it not at LPPA?
No, it was. Hers was, I will say it was inspiring to see it because it references kind of the positive vision of libertarian that I ascribe to. And it was done incredibly well. She's a great public speaker. And so it was interesting. She gave me a camera and she's like, take photographs. Cause I always ask somebody else to take photographs while I'm presenting. And then I get to look at how, judge how somebody like me would take photos. So they're all terrible. And she's definitely judging me for it. But it was a positive message of giving each other kind of some grace, and also the idea of how we need to market libertarianism to other people. And that these ideas are actually, basically would be viral. And if we just sold them correctly, and really that libertarianism is a loving philosophy, and that it's kind of been pushed to this angry philosophy. And it's all about the defense of property rights, when in reality, in a freer world, people would flourish more. And I think you can't not want to live in a world where your neighbor is flourishing more. And especially people that have had a harder time in life, they have an opportunity to really take advantage of that freedom and economics that would come from it. And also the voluntary interactions that would really come out of it. So for me, it was something that I was okay, this aligns with my worldview of it, that something is really possible. So it was a good presentation. And so it was nice to meet her in person and then see that presentation that time when I was there. So, yeah. She also did Ladies with Liberty with some other libertarian ladies. So it was, I think overall it was great presentations from the ones that I went to. So I can't complain in general. I think LPPA is entirely savable to make it a neutral platform where people can work together in good faith. I think it's just building the bridges with people that are ideologically maybe very different than me. And making it an open line of communication. And as long as people are doing that in good faith and not being, abusive or disrespectful to one another, I think that's, the best way forward for the party in general.
Well, and we did have victories. We had victories in PA. We had victories in Tennessee, which was unexpected. It was an interesting weekend just to sort of see. There's a little bit of a vibe shift going on, and we're here for it, and we're here to actually mechanize it and take it all the way to Grand Rapids and the Grand Rapids Revolution. So rock on. Now, we did learn last night, as we said at the top of the show, that building maintenance is woke. And there was a very critical motion on selling the building, selling LP headquarters, which is presently located on Duke Street in Alexandria. I had the misfortune of growing up near Duke Street and living there for some time. Duke Street is an incredibly, it's a very, very bougie area where this building is located. Alexandria in general is a pretty bougie place. It's basically where you live if you're working in government or for government. And in DC, everyone works for government in some capacity, even in the private sector. And you don't want to deal with the property taxes. So you live just outside DC and you live in Alexandria. And you drive on Russell Road where nobody goes more than like 2 miles an hour. And I don't know why, because it's 20 anyhow. Like there are 5 people watching maybe who understood that. But the point is that it's a very, very expensive place to live. I cannot recall ever seeing a building there, certainly in the headquarters where, or rather in the area where LPHQ is, go for, I mean, really the amount that's being specified here, which is $640,000. That is outrageously low. And to say that, well, prices are going down, real estate prices are going down in DC. First of all, that market don't crack. That market never cracked. And the fact that people are trying to claim this because, oh, well, Doge is actually doing its job. There is not a way to have prices plummet that quickly. I love that show. Thank you. But no, there's not a way to have prices plummet that quickly. What I do find interesting, however, is that we found out upon a review of an older article on Third Party Watch that if the building is sold for a certain amount, the Libertarian Party has to pay $750,000, or rather, that has to go to a new building. Anything above that $750,000 can go to whatever funds the LP desires. Now, the problem here is that if the building is sold for under $750,000, what does that exactly mean? My guess is that that money will still need to go to another building, but there have been efforts to make that not so. My sense is that perhaps there are people on the LNC who believed that by selling the building for less than $750,000, they could avoid this regulation. That's my guess. That's what I think they think might be happening here. And that might be part of why that price is so low. A very, very specific amount low, which is just over $100,000 under the amount that they would need to be paying toward a new building.
Yeah. I would just say they need to get a lawyer and be guaranteed sure that they're not messing these things up. We're already losing probably a lot of money because of the mistakes that have been made in the past. And if we start getting hit by fines and all these other things and opening up to further lawsuits, the party's going to just keep getting, more and more financially strapped in the long term. Yeah. I was at the convention and then I saw the clip from the Twitter and I was like, oh man, like this is nuts. I don't know can we bring that clip again? I know we talked about it earlier, but I feel like this clip kind of will make us all think about exactly what happened. And there's a moment in it, and I'll see if Kyle catches it. I don't know if he was in here when I was talking about it, but there's a moment that I find pretty funny that happened along the way.
The roof is leaking pretty badly. Apparently this has been going on for a while, and it was thought to have been resolved, and it, I guess, was not. And it was not known how bad it was until recently.
And, just a basic roof typically will cost between $35 and $40 per square foot. So we're like, if we wanted to replace this roof, just the roof would be close to 100 grand.
A buyer was identified and a sale price has been agreed upon with them at $650. The building was appraised for $840. This did not take into account the damages, anything related to leaks, could be mold, electrical problems, whatever it is.
I think that's going to be an issue. Since the water damage was not taken into account with the appraisal, and the appraisal was late last year, right? Does that indicate that the damage was very recent then, right? Like we had some damage over time, but
so the damage, I think it began in like late 2021, and I think it was identified fairly early according to minutes from that time. And I believe some work was done, but I'm not able to validate that. And nothing else was noticed until one of the trips that I made with a couple of other volunteers, just to kind of reorganize everything, get rid of office supplies, that kind of thing, move stuff to the basement. And I guess it started raining that day. Luckily we were there and we noticed it. I think this was probably about a year ago or so. And then this would have been like March of last year. And then, things got kind of crazy with the Convention Oversight Committee. I ended up joining that.
so we just let it leak for a year?
Kind of. I mean,
do you feel like it was a couple of $100,000 worth of damage?
It could be.
Okay.
We don't know. We don't know what we don't know until we start hacking away. So.
And do we not carry insurance on the property that would?
As stated previously, we do have insurance. However, this is wear and tear and would therefore not be covered. We cannot file a claim on wear and tear.
As per Robert Kraus, that's bullshit.
And we can pull up something from that too, but go on.
So before we do that, did anybody notice the thing that I saw?
I noticed a few things. I wrote them down. It might not have been what you noticed. It was thought to have been. It was not known. A buyer was identified. A sale price has been agreed upon. Some work was done. Nothing else was noticed. The passive voice was used almost exclusively. Who did all of these things? I don't know. Anyway, I'm not sure what you noticed.
No, that's much better analysis than mine. Mine was just seeing Adrian Malagon rubbing his head like, oh no, all of the bad things that we let happen are coming to fruition. And then he takes his glass as he's talking and drinks it back. And like, I have to believe it's got to be some good alcohol for him to be like, oh my God, it's I'm reaping what I've sown. But I it definitely was
such a metaphor, ladies and gentlemen. We are all the leaky roof. I feel solidarity with this very not solid roof. This is a metaphor for the LP at this point. The leaky roof. It was just allowed to leak for a year. Yes, it was. Yeah, but I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Me?
Or did I? Well, somebody. I think I usually assume that I've interrupted somebody.
No, you're good.
How I proceed in life.
I had a leaking roof for a while. I had to pay to get that fixed. In the end, it was about 50 grand for our roof because we have a gigantic roof on our house because it's a ranch style. We knew it was a problem, but it appeared to be a very minor problem when I got up there and looked. It was like, oh, well, this is just very, very slight. And then a storm happened and it got worse. This is something that as soon as it got worse was fixed in a week. As soon as it was actually get up in there and look at it and notice it's bad, a week. Starting 2024, we clearly didn't care about spending money because we spent all of it for the entire year's budget in 5 months and then continued spending into the ground. So if the budget doesn't care, it doesn't matter, and you're willing to go into debt, and you have a business expense like a roof, why would you not finance that and pay it back to make sure the rest of your $1 million building doesn't become a problem? And
oh man, you're
call
speaking
me
with too much
stupid
logic.
here.
Too much logic.
So after this happened, Robert Kraus happened to be watching this and was furious about it. And Robert Kraus responds to Keith's notice on this with, the roof had a 20-year plus warranty, and they always came out to fix it at little to no cost. It was fixed prior to my departure. Regular maintenance is, of course, advised on all flat roofs, as is cleaning of branches, leaves, and such. But anything major is covered through 2029 or so. So, who is this person they brought in for saying it's $100,000, who isn't aware that we have a warranty on the roof?
It's either a lie or it is set up so that it will be an unwitting falsehood. We can put it that way. Yeah. So everything was covered. That would not have cost us anything. Is what we're hearing from Robert Kraus, is that no, we actually had a policy to take care of these precise things. So the question becomes, once again, we're not actually taking a stand on whether the building should be sold or not. We've had disagreements in LP Alliance about this, just kind of for fun. Some people think it should be, some people think it shouldn't be. I think it should be moved to Chicago along with someone else. But this is not about whether it should be sold. This is about the obfuscation, the use of passive voice, and that's mostly my pet peeve, and the willingness to kind of try and sweep this under the rug, try and fool people, try and say, oh, the housing market is so bad. I mean, $650,000. And so I was wrong. It's exactly $100K less than the amount that we have to pay to a new building. And again, I think that is strange. I just find it strange. And I don't know if this is one of those things where someone assumes that there might be a loophole somewhere. So let me see if I can try to finagle it. If I'm paying a low enough price, maybe the regulations will go easy on me. There are many things that we aren't being told about why the building's being sold. My guess is that it's an attempt to pay off debts, but there are other ways to do that. Presumably, if we had a functional party, then we could do fundraising to pay off debts rather than cutting programs, rather than selling buildings.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they changed their messaging from the LP National and like actually enacted it and didn't just kind of do performative stuff like we've been seeing recently, I think Stephen has been saying the right things a lot of the times. I have questions if he wants to actually follow through with any of them, as he's reposting Kaufman onto his Twitter and things like that. And my biggest worry is that like he will say the right things in the right times and then not do the right things. We've seen a lot of talk out of prior administrations, going back for a long time, and then not the kind of correct action from it. And I worry that this is going to be more of the same. And there's an opportunity here where if they do have to sell it, there's if they don't want to sell it, they could change their marketing and draw back longtime libertarians, people that thought the party was unsavable, that have left. If they change the tune, the way they're acting with in social media and so on, and really start representing all libertarians, not just reposting right-leaning libertarians essentially the entire time, then I guarantee you people would come back. They would get more money and donations. And, I vowed, initially when Stephen had taken over, in good faith, I donated to say, like, this was better than Heist taking over. But I also, made a post at some point recently saying, I will not give any more until certain things are done. PDR is what it is. If it's a successful local campaign, great. We've had those in the past. We also didn't pay for them nonstop, right? We did not keep somebody on retainer, especially somebody who has kind of just been aiding in constant division forward. So if PDR is going to be one of the many local strategies that our party tries, it needs to be not on a salary basis. It needs to be a metric-based system. We got more votes. We got more registered libertarians. We got more people elected in the right positions. And some strategy needs to come up where it shows like the amount of effort put in is being worth it. Otherwise, we are wasting our money, as it's been seen to happen recently. And there's things that I don't like about PDR. There's things that I do like about PDR. And I would be much more likely to support them if there wasn't this constant payout for what I view as a waste of money. And just doing that and changing the pay structure, I think would bring a lot of people back. And especially if Stephen then offered alternative options available, right? Like, somebody else came up with another local strategy and they happen to show with metrics that they're doing better, that they would also be willing to give those same kind of bounties. $4,000 a month, I think, is what PDR is going currently to keep him on staff. I would do a lot of stuff to make more, libertarian metrics go forward if I could get a piece of some of that for a bounty, right? I think a lot of people would be motivated to do that. And whoever comes up and puts forward a plan, they approve some of them. They go, okay, be fair, show your metrics. Okay, you've met the requirement for this process. And I think you would get donations that would be a self-feeding cycle, and you would have all these decentralized local strategies, not just one project decentralized revolution. You would end up with actual decentralized strategies that are tuned for each location, and not, as we know with all things, when they're centrally planned, they usually fail. And we've seen that. I view it, again, even if the sentiment behind it was pure, that we're going to change our strategy and focus local, we have not seen that. And the continuation of it and the not stopping of it makes people like me, I will not give more, right, to the party directly. I did pledge recently. Calls were made for pledges to start a independent investigation. I don't know if you guys know about this. I pledged money to that. And this is my point. Like, if there are things that I believe in or that I trust in, especially in the liberty space, and I think that people aren't being counterrepresented, I will give. And there are many people like me. And I just hope that all of this is actually a real change, and Stephen needs to make some things happen, because I'm starting to lose faith in it. I'll say that very clearly.
Yeah, no independent investigation as yet, not even overages toward it. And to be clear, I think with any kind of multi-state structure for any kind of initiative, right, with like PDR, yes, oversight and coordination on the national level is essential, right? Because that's kind of the glue. But that's very different than dictating, okay, here's the program that you're going to do. Here are the candidates that you're going to run. Well, let me handpick them. And it's decentralized because I'm doing it everywhere on a decentralized level. And yeah, the decentralization is the micromanagement. That's not great. When we actually have dialogue with different states, when we have direct action committees in different states and different districts that are interfacing with one another and saying, we're working on this, we're coalitioning with this group, we're trying to push this forward. This is really important in our community. And so we have the motivation and we have the sentiment to get it done. Then that's when national can come and lend a hand and promote those victories when they occur. That's a kind of decentralized revolution strategy that I can get behind, where you do have national helping out. But really the main, the information is coming from the ground up, as any grassroots activism should be.
I agree. And I'm hoping that that can happen, especially if we really get a neutral board and when we get these replacements in 2026. And if it really is every type of libertarian represented, all in good faith, coming to work together, hopefully these sorts of things become much easier to get through, and we can have a bunch of positive things happening out of it. We do have a couple comments. We have Starfield. Do you want to bring up Starfield into the chat here?
Got it.
Yeah, so the LP isn't getting more donations from me until I see changes. I can't even get a verification that my lifetime membership is paid off.
I just had that problem and know how to solve it.
Okay, solutions.
So I will. I'll pull that up right quick. Ship.
Well, you have a lot of
Okay.
solutions for things, Kyle, on your level that people are not listening to on other levels. So
This one is allowable to everybody.
all right.
Info@lp.org will hit the people who manage our memberships. And so if you hit info@lp.org with a email asking about your lifetime membership, they will respond. I also tried the contact form and the Discord and got nothing, but the email did work for me. Iris Poole responded to me. It came via the Zoho desk. So she must have actually gotten a ticket, and that's awesome. So for anybody watching who is questioning a lifetime membership, I paid for another one and was hoping to see that it had gone through. And so I was checking. So definitely check with info@lp.org.
Awesome.
Good to know. Very good to know. No,
So
they're gone.
Oh no, I'm sorry. What were you gonna say?
No, I was going to go back to the roof thing because there was, first of all, there were the information from about the $750,000 came from an older article. People did know about this for quite some time, and people even accused McArdle at one point. I think it was last year, of wanting to sell the building, to which she replied, "No, that's crazy talk. Nobody is trying to sell the building." And it's just interesting. I don't know if we have that screenshot available or not, but it's just interesting that that now we indeed are selling the building. That motion has passed. I don't think it's coming up. I'm not sure if Devin has it on. There we go.
Oh.
No, there we go. Yes.
2022, April 4th.
Peter says, my expectation is that Mises PAC leadership will loot the Treasury and sell our headquarters to further the grift and solidify their destruction of the LP. Angela McArdle writes, I'm not looting the Treasury or selling the building. That's insane. Peter has a metaphor about dogs below.
In a similar vein there, I cannot quickly pull this one up. Like to show, but I do have a message from longtime libertarian Kara Schultz about it, where she has said that the Libertarian National Party is dead. 1972 to 2025, it was a good run while it lasted. Last night, the Mises Caucus controlled LNC effectively into the Libertarian Party as a national force. They've dismantled the infrastructure, and it's clear the goal was to eliminate any perceivable obstacle to a Trump/GOP victory. Here's the harsh truth. Strategic takeover. What seemed like a new direction was a calculated takeover, fueled by outside support, aimed at aligning the LP with the GOP. Systematic destruction. From firing staff to alienating donors, losing ballot access, and actively undermining our own candidates, they've gutted the party's ability to function. Leadership betrayal. Leaders were pushed out, replaced by those prioritizing GOP agendas over libertarian principles. Financial mismanagement. Accusations of embezzlement by former chair Angela McArdle, who has since resigned to take a job in the Trump administration, and a party in debt with no real donations coming in. The lies, and yesterday, they voted to sell the headquarters in the DC area. The building was entirely funded through donations. It was the single most popular thing our members donated to year in and year out. It was planting a flag saying, we are here and in your face and we're serious. The lies that are being told is that the building is not necessary. It's only not necessary if you don't plan on having a staff and don't plan on ever engaging in elections again. The second lie is just as bad, that the roof has leaked for 4 years and it would take $100,000 to fix, and there is no money. There was staff working in there until 2023, and the roof wasn't leaking. If one had happened in the past year, the roof is insured. Oh, goodness. The roof is insured for repairs until 2029, but they are citing a roof leak as the excuse to sell the building at a steep discount to an unnamed buyer. And there it is, the last grift, the last lie, the last piece of party infrastructure gone. They've extinguished the flame. It's a sad day for liberty. I like Kara. I'm friends with Kara. I think that she's an excellent long-term libertarian. And I responded to her with something that I think LP Alliance in general is going to agree with me on. And that's that it ain't over yet. We are the phoenix that arises from the flame of liberty, no matter how trampled by the jackboot of statism. I believe fully that whether the building is sold now or the building is repaired and kept for the Libertarian Party, the fight isn't over. This is a infinite game. There is no win condition, which is something that people don't seem to understand. As soon as, let's say that libertarians take over everything. We have the presidency, we have every seat in Congress, we have the entire judiciary. We fix everything and we are in Libertopia or Ancapistan, whatever your goal is. The day after, the statists will start building again. This is not a short, easy fight. There is no win condition other than to continuously move toward that libertarian goal, that liberty, that freedom. And so the Mises Caucus can't kill the Libertarian Party. The Mises Caucus, at this point, much of it doesn't want to kill the Libertarian Party. What we have are people. The only thing we've ever had are people. The building is a sign and a signal that's as strong to us as the flag is to many, many Americans, including nationalists and non. We are here, and that building is a symbol for us. If that symbol is destroyed, we'll rally again. It's that simple. We're going to rally again, and we'll buy another building. It doesn't matter. This is not a win or a loss based on this building. The win or a loss is based on people who walk away and give up hope. We have got to continue this fight.
Yeah. And liberty in general is in the middle voice. It doesn't happen. You don't arrive at it. It is an action. It is active. And there is, I don't even know if there's a such thing as Libertopia or Ancapistan or Ankamistan or whatever, although they got pretty close in Ukraine one time. It's a continuous cycle, and it continues to change because liberty responds to the iterative conditions of human action, right? And to the iterative conditions around you. So you are constantly changing what that looks like. It's part of why there are so many platform debates that we have all the time. We're constantly changing in response to what is happening. Liberty is always going to look different, and it's going to look different based on the individual. It's going to look different based on individual conditions. So no, it's libertarianism doesn't die, liberty doesn't die, and the Libertarian Party doesn't have to die either. I don't think it's going to die. I know it's not going to die as long as any of us are here. And yeah, we buy another building. What this signals is that we have work to do. We have a fight. This needs to be a way, as you said, Kyle, of planting our flag in the ground. But we're not giving up. There is still a flag to fly.
So Mark says Andrew Watkins, current at-large member and former vice chair under McCardle, works in the real estate industry. And so if the caucus and their LNC apologists have been talking about selling the building for years since the Reno convention, they subsequently emptied the building of staff, equipment, bring up the next, and now we'll try to get the cash from the sale to make up for all the losses that have been incurred. A bad long-term strategic choice by today's LNC. I happen to agree with him, but we are at a moment where it is I don't know what the answer is to sell or not sell. They have to make a decision of how do we survive the state that we're in now, and can we get through while maintaining a building? I don't have an answer for that. It depends on what they do, right? If they choose to keep going down the same path when it comes to messaging while allowing the same sort of things coming out of LPNH and doing nothing about it, then no. Of course they're going to have to sell it, right? And that's what it'll be. And then Stephen will have a very sad interim chair position, where it comes out and it's like, hey, you were there as it was dismantled. And then in 2026, a slate of people made up of wide-ranging ideologies will come in, and we will do our best to say, hey, you have failed. There's a new way forward. It is one where we have good faith with each other. There's no tribalism. There's no favoritism. And we do our best to represent the principles, not a interpretation of them. And that should be I think the answer here is, so he can choose to pick up our platform ideas of saying, like, really remain neutral and bring things back to the core. And I think he would be successful, and he probably wouldn't have to sell the building, and they probably wouldn't have to pay the not have to worry about not being able to afford the upkeep costs that happen per month for that building. But I don't think that's going to happen based on his recent stuff. Like I said, he says things. Will he do anything? I don't have a ton of faith at this point.
Well, I think our biggest worry with Stephen Nikela in the building at the moment is that it could be a Wendy's.
Yeah, that is true.
It could be a Wendy's. Is that what you said?
It could be a Wendy's.
I
be
do not
Wendy's.
want leaky roof water in my Frosty. Okay, that's
just unacceptable.
unacceptable. That happens at McDonald's. Okay, like at a Wendy's. No.
Well, I
supposed to
mean,
be a
we are
classy joint.
all hamburgers flapping our meat at each other, according to Kyle. So maybe there's a way to work this in somehow. There's the material for a joke there. Someone do something with it.
I think the joke writes itself.
As all things do. In the passive voice, in the active voice.
Joe says, "Is this a preview for my chair?" No, I want nothing to do with any position anywhere in the party. I don't think I would be good at it. I am not good at anything menial at all. So no, the process of guiding and interacting and talking to people and trying to spread an idea, yes, but that I would be terrible for. We need people that have been long in the Liberty community. And if I can help bridge the gaps between these long people that really know what what the procedures are, I would go there and I would know nothing about parliamentarian behavior. It would be horrible. So no, absolutely not. But if I could help bridge gaps between people that might have historically had fights, that I would love to do. And I hope that I can. And I hope that we as an organization can do that. So I'm sorry, Joe, if you did want me there. No, thank you.
I am less intelligent than Phil, as I am running for treasurer of Georgia and for a spot on the COC for national.
Cool.
And speaking of committees that I'm on, I actually have to bounce, guys, as there is an IS committee meeting right now.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you and your rainbow porcupine and your flapping meat for joining us this evening.
I will always flap my meat for you guys.
You will never
so
live
much.
this down. Never
Thanks
live
so
it
much,
down.
Kyle.
I'll send you the short story that I'm quoting from.
Yeah, please do. Please. There's
Will do.
nothing that I want more tonight than to read that.
Oh,
All right.
God.
Be gone.
As Mark Tunyevich has pointed out, it is time for me to wrap up my meat.
Go be merry.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think Mark's probably right. We probably should. I mean, I don't know. Do you have more to talk about? I think we've kind of said what we needed to say about the ongoings, but
It's a terrible question to ask because I always have more to talk about. But no, I think that we've said what we needed to say. I think some of the main takeaways here are that, first of all, that was a combination between the words leak and roof, ladies and gentlemen. The leaf. The leaky roof can get fixed, evidently at no cost. We have an insurance policy through 29. This people apparently knew about this for quite some time. There is no way under the sun that the building value is even close to 650. And it is a very strange number considering that the amount that LNC or LP would need to pay toward a new building is 750. I have more questions about that, and I hope somebody can at least look at various things. I doubt that that's actually a loophole and a workaround. But one thing that we do know about various members of the LNC is that sometimes they will search for workarounds that do not in fact exist and claim to have found them. So all things to look into.
Yeah, I think, I'm still waiting for the JFC stuff to somebody in the FEC being like, you know what, we're going to look into this, and the entire party gets destroyed from it. It's like the ticking time bomb that I fear for the party, is that this thing is going to just be there eventually. McCardle naively being like, yes, I'll do some very sketchy campaign finance law without really, doing my due diligence. That definitely scares me. And I would not be surprised if that sort of mentality is continuing. I hope not. And I think the best way that they could avoid that and really prove that they are being above board would be to form a committee of members to find external appraisals, external repair prices. Because even if they repair the roof, if there is internal damage, that would not be covered probably under any warranty. So they might be able to get the roof repaired, but structural damage, mold damage, all of that. But even then, we need to know how much it would cost to fix it. If we need to take out a line of credit against the building to fix it and then sell it, these are things that need to be done probably from people, membership that do know these sorts of things, and really be like above board, like no more like leaving questions to be asked. It needs to be absolutely transparent. And if they do that, then I will commend them. But I'm holding my breath for the time being.
Don't hold your breath for the time being. You might die. For now, we are all in solidarity with the leaky roof. The leaky roof is all of us, and I just want to send it my thoughts and prayers.
All right. Well, I guess we can call it for tonight. We will probably have another stream sometime later on this week, and we will keep you all informed about it.
Good night, guys.
Let's see. I mean, that Donald is on. Is it? Let's have semantics to say, please. Let's see.
Maybe I should use a different word. I'll still believe all the same shit, but maybe, I don't know. I outsource it to the fans. You tell me, what's the word that I should call myself? But I will just say that this is, I got to take a step back and kind of assess what I'm doing here.